Good morning and welcome into SimWorld today on this June 24th. We've got a great episode ahead. We're talking about some of the comments after the run-to-one championship game made by folks that weren't even in the game. We're talking about the run-to-one game itself, but if we are nothing but a team that follows routine, we are going to start in the association. Don't worry, we're getting to the run-to-one Cooper flag coronation. Don't get your britches in a bunch. We will get there, but we're starting with comments made by General Manager Nico Harrison of the Dallas Mavericks saying the team is not planning on blowing anything up in Dallas, and what they plan to do is see Luka Doncic get better. Now, look, these comments come on the close of what was a very obviously successful season for the Dallas Mavericks, making it to the SWBA Finals, where they ultimately fell in 5 games to a simply better Boston Celtics team, a team that just had more depth, that had more talent, that had more reliable pieces. I don't think they had a better star, but they had players that played better in the finals, and I think this is the culmination of probably seasons worth of frustration within Dallas around Luka Doncic, and I mean that in the type of frustrated you get when you're talking about your brother, your son, your nephew, someone you care about, you love, you think is going to still do great things, but just has some pieces around the edge that still need to get cleaned up a little bit. Because this comes, I think, after maybe the most damning of kickbacks or pushbacks about Luka Doncic. One, you've got the media pushback, which came from Brian Windhorst after Game 3, in which Luka fouls out with 4 minutes left in a must-win game at home in the SWBA Finals. But it also comes where there's really nothing else that Luka Doncic can say to Dallas and say, this is why I have to keep doing it my way. Because now they have failed again on the largest stage. He lost in the 2022 Western Conference Finals, and they lost, of course, to the Boston Celtics in the SWBA Finals this past year. You cannot now look at the mirror. You can't look in the mirror if you're Luka Doncic and say, how I do it works. Because I think this is just the culmination of this team probably saying to him, you can't complain about everything. And that is really the pathway that we've gone with stars over the last decade plus. And Luka Doncic, I think, is the most egregious of complainers among them. And so for Nico Harrison to come down and say, look, we are not doing much to get better. And frankly, there's not really much else to do. Kyrie Irving just stunk in the SWBA Finals. You've got your center of the future, centers if you want to, Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. PJ Washington played really well. That team, that roster, frankly, just wasn't going to be better than Boston because the way the Celtics have accumulated 4 guys, maybe 5 guys that can create for themselves in a pinch is very, very rare in today's SWBA. But that Dallas Mavericks team, which had one of the best records in the league after the trade deadline, no, of course they shouldn't have to blow things up. But in order for this team to get better, Luka Doncic does need to become Nikola Jokic level. You're going to see a lot of people putting Doncic at like number 2 in player rankings right now in the SWBA, and I don't think that's wrong. But the number 2 guy needs to play like that a little bit more than he did in the SWBA Finals, where he was constantly not getting to his spots. He was taking bailout threes, and of course, he was complaining to the refs and making it a battle amongst them as opposed to a battle against the Celtics. So for the Mavericks to make this pointed, which I think that this is what it is, it's a admission that this team is still really good, but they just need more out of Luka Doncic. It's no different than what every other team does with their number 1 superstar, and it's no different than what happened with the Denver Nuggets 2 seasons ago when they lost to Golden State in the opening round, and Nikola Jokic was bad. He was targeted constantly on defense, and yes, that Denver team was dealing with injuries to Michael Porter Jr., dealing with injuries to Jamal Murray, but he got better. He got better, and he became undoubtedly the best player in the league last season. They need that out of Luka Doncic now and moving forward. All right, let's move on to the run-to-one, where Cooper flag, we said it before, the coronation of Cooper on full display. 28 points in a dominant run-to-one performance. They beat Rocky Mountain in a game that was exceptionally competitive. 8-point game by the end of this thing. I thought Rocky Mountain hung around in it. Justin Bell played well, but we've seen this over the past 5 games, and we've seen it for much of the season. There's no answer for Cooper Flag. His athleticism, his size, and his ability to create on the ball is exceptionally unique. In that, let alone the SimWorld prep game, which is very much true, but in basketball as a whole. And on Sunday, Rocky Mountain simply had no answers. And this was a fantastic performance from Cooper Flagg. And look, I got to come out and say this before anyone else beats me to the punch. I was wrong. I was on camera on a Marsh Mobile months ago saying this team, I ruled them out. They couldn't win a game. Boy, was I ever, or not win a game. They could obviously win a game, but win a championship. And I was obviously wrong because Cooper Flagg took his game to another level. And what I underestimated about Cooper Flagg and this team was that he doesn't have off nights. He doesn't have the Japhett Towns 5 for 18 in the opening round of the run to one. He doesn't have that because his game is harder to stop than many other players because he does it in so many different ways. One, he's not a three-point shooter. Eventually, that's going to have to become some type of a factor for him. He didn't take a single three. He assaulted the paint. Eventually, those type of players are going to catch up to him. You're going to get to the SWU level. You're going to have better wing defenders. You're going to have better perimeter defenders. You're going to have more athletic defenders. That's going to be a challenge for Cooper Flagg. You're going to get to the SWBA, and you're going to run into better defenders. But Cooper Flagg's upside is massive, and we saw that again on Sunday where he just consistently got to the paint. We saw Alyssa Dodge take off the training wheels. 30 minutes played by Cooper Flagg. She has committed to this roster, playing big minutes down the stretch. She relied so heavily on her starters. Okay, all of her starters played at least 25 minutes. Biggest bench minutes were Kamari Ward and Jay Laster getting 8 minutes, and they went a combined 2 for 9. She knew what she had. She said, okay, my bench is not going to get things done. I'm going to rely on the guys that have gotten us here, and they delivered. And this was a fantastic season for Cooper Flagg, but this was also a continuation of a fantastic coaching track record of Alyssa Dodge. We sit here and we say, who should be the SimWorld prep coach that goes to SimWorld U? Well, it should be Coach Drayton, of course, because he won a championship last season. He had a great defensive scheme. He's developed really, really solid basketball players. Well, no, it should be Coach Brad Lee. He's went to 2 straight SimWorld Prep championship games. He's developed guys like Gabe Pope. He helped in the development of Trey Turner. Well, no, maybe it should be Coach Kusa, who's done a fantastic job with SimWorld Atlantis because they had really nothing. He made them a number 1 seed, and he gets Coach of the Year, and he's had a very consistent track record of doing that. We don't ever, and I'm not, of course somebody has brought it up, but Coach Dodge is often left out of that conversation. Yet, over the last 3 years, she has developed Johnny Baldwin into something. Granted, they lost in the first round. She attracts elite talent like DJ Wagner and Cooper Flagg, and now she's got a championship under her belt with this elite team. And a huge part of this championship was also the development of guys like Christ Coates, like Justin McGavin, who was awesome, 11 points, 4 of 6, hit key shots for that team. Like Victor Sogaskis, you want to talk about a playmaker in the post. Big Vic gets it done. Tycadrian Walker, she is consistently getting the best out of her players, improving her players, and attracting elite talent. And I think that pretty much is what you're trying to do at the SimWorld U level. So Coach Dodge, Cooper Flagg, Christ Coates, Justin McGavin, the rest of this roster, congratulations on a championship. Well-deserved. And this is the proof point that this team was, in fact, the best team in the league. And you're going to get some folks out of Philadelphia claiming foul. Well, look at us. They missed it. It was a 2-pointer. They called it a 3. You still lost in overtime, my guys. You still lost in overtime. You could be the beast of these. Well, if we hadn't lost to Run DMV, we would have been able to beat Philadelphia and beat them. But you still lost to Run DMV. Cascadia. We got upset in the first round. Exactly. Nobody could stop this team. This was the best team in the league, with the best player in the league, and they proved it on Sunday. Which brings us to our last point. Life has a way of being very poetic, right? You ever think about that? Well, you should. Because the old adage goes that the experience, the value, isn't about the final destination, but it's about the journey. And isn't it poetic that the one man that doesn't want to appreciate that is a man named Taj Journey, spurring a number of conversations after the game about how this season was boring and that it was predestination. Well, let me get a little bit of steak because I really need to salt up this meat before I cook it. I appreciate all of these thought processes that now we talk too much about Cooper Flagg. No, we don't. We talk about greatness. And I'm really sorry that you're, not necessarily Taj Journey, I'm not talking to you, but you as a whole, people that are upset that people talk about Cooper Flagg aren't as good. I'm sorry you lose in the first round. I'm sorry you lose to them in the championship game of the Founders Region Final. I'm really sorry you're not as good as Cooper Flag, because I'd love to talk about you. And we do talk about other great players. We talk about Japheth Towns. Unfortunately, he's still not as good as Cooper Flag, and he goes 5 of 18 in the first round of a playoff game. That's what we're going to talk about. And in case you haven't realized it, in a world of attention seeking, we often talk about the best. Now, we're in a really great spot with Cooper Flag. We're talking all positives. I promise you eventually we're going to start talking negatives. He's going to lose a game, Duke's going to struggle, and we're going to say, man, Cooper Flag, maybe it's all hype. Maybe there's nothing to it. But the fact of the matter is we talk about what's great because we as people are attracted to what's great. That's what interests us. Greatness in the world interests us. That's why people go to the Grand Canyon, because it's fantastic. They go to Zion National Park. They go to the Pyramids of Giza. Not because they look cool, because they are great. They are wonders of the world. And Cooper Flag is the wonder of the SimWorld Prep world. So if you would like to put your tinfoil caps on, talk about some media conspiracies, I'll throw others back at you. It's very easy to make up conspiracy theories that fit the narrative, yet have absolutely no basis in reality. But we talk about what's great. Cooper Flag has been great. It's a very simple equation. If you want to be talked about, be better, or don't be so good that when you suck, it's worth talking about. That's really it. That's all this boils down to. And if you want to call this a boring season, then I hate to imagine what you consider to be entertaining. Because I thought this season was exceptionally entertaining. We had a SimWorld Atlantis team that was below 500 midway through the year before Coach Kusa turned them around and actually produced great basketball and really changed the entire narrative around Bjarne Johnson. We had a Rocky Mountain Monsters team that was 5-12 in February. They went 14-5 down the stretch, made it all the way to the championship game, and was within striking distance of a championship in the run-to-one against the cyborg Cooper Flag. We had 3 teams in the same region, all be viable number 1 seeds, and yet they cannibalized themselves and only one of them advanced out. We had 2 teams that got upsets in the first round as 8 seeds, one of them playing in their last games in SimWorld Prep history. That's boring to you? That's entertaining. And so just because the end result wasn't what you envisioned it, because the Queen City Kings couldn't string together a bunch of wins, you want to talk conspiracy theories? Let's make one up right now. Why is Skinny Washington at 24/7 Sports? Well, because he tried to go to Louisville. Louisville looked at his track record at Queen City and said, oh, actually, he kind of stinks. Let's not have him anymore. So he bolted for a better paying job at a media company. I don't believe that to be true, but it makes sense, doesn't it? So this was entertaining. Just because you weren't entertained, or, like I said, Salt Bay was in your feelings last night, I don't really take those complaints seriously. All right, we're coming back tomorrow to talk more here on SimWorld Today. I appreciate you tuning in. You're going to deal with this mug again at 4 p.m. with our new updated SimWorld TV schedule. I promise you it won't be another dose of this, but that was very therapeutic. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with some special guests once again here on SimWorld Today, here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.